All right, so get this. We are diving headfirst into the American Taxpayer Relief Act of 2024.
Fresh off the presses, right?
Still warm.
Yeah.
This thing, it's packed with dense legalese, but trust me, it's worth wading through.
Yeah.
Because it could directly impact your wallet.
You got that right.
We're talking tax breaks for families,
Yeah.
a boost for businesses,
Especially
like the innovators.
Yeah, pushing the boundaries of innovation and even some international intrigue involving Taiwan.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Plus, we'll explore how the act aims to help those affected by disasters and tackle the affordable housing crisis.
You know, what's interesting about all this is act is trying to do so many things at once.
Yeah.
It's like a policy buffet.
Yeah.
And the question is, will it work?
That's exactly what we're here to unpack.
Yeah.
So let's start with something that's probably top of mind for a lot of listeners. Tax breaks for families.
All right, so the child tax credit.
It got a serious makeover with this act.
Okay.
It's designed to put more money back into the pockets of families who need it most.
Got it.
Think of it as a helping hand from Uncle Sam,
Yeah.
even if you don't owe any taxes.
Okay, so walk me through this.
Yeah.
What exactly has changed?
So instead of a flat credit,
Okay.
the amount you get back is now tied to how many kids you have
Okay.
and your earned income. So let's say you've got 2 qualifying children. You take your earned income over $2,500, you multiply that by 15%.
Okay.
And because you have 2 kids,
Yeah.
you multiply that result by 2.
Okay, so that could mean a much bigger credit than before.
Oh yeah, potentially a lot bigger.
Okay, and the maximum amount you can get back is going up too, right?
You bet. For 2023,
Okay.
it's $1,800 per child. Then it jumps to $1,900 in 2024
Okay.
and hits $2,000 in 2025.
Wow.
And get this, it's adjusted for inflation
Nice.
to keep pace with, the rising costs.
They really tried to make this work for families.
I think so. They really thought about it.
Yeah.
Tried to make it as helpful as possible.
Okay, that's great. But what if your income fluctuates year to year?
Yeah.
Like, let's say you had a great 2023,
Yeah.
but things are a bit tighter in 2024. Do you get penalized?
Not at all.
Okay.
For 2024 and 2025, you can actually use your income from the previous year
Okay.
to calculate the credit.
Okay, so if your income dips a bit, you've got some flexibility.
Exactly.
Smart move.
Yeah.
Okay, now let's shift gears a bit
Sure.
and talk about businesses,
All right.
especially those driving innovation.
Yeah.
How does this act aim to help them grow?
Well, research and development, that's the heart of innovation, right?
Yeah.
So this act,
Okay.
it allows businesses to immediately deduct their R&D costs
So before they...
before they had to spread those deductions out over 5 years.
Oh, wow. So that's like a waiting game.
Oh, yeah, long waiting game.
So a bigger upfront deduction means more cash on hand for businesses to reinvest in their R&D.
Yeah, exactly. It's like fuel for the innovation engine.
I like that. Fuel for the innovation engine. All right, I'm following so far.
Okay.
What about depreciation? I remember seeing something about bonus depreciation.
Oh, yeah. Bonus depreciation is a big one.
Okay.
So the 100% bonus depreciation for qualified property.
Like new equipment.
Yeah, like new equipment facilities.
Okay.
It's extended through 2025
Okay.
and then gradually phases down. So imagine you're a company.
Okay.
You're investing in a brand new state-of-the-art piece of equipment.
Mm-hmm.
With 100% bonus depreciation, you can write off the entire cost in the first year.
Wow, that's a serious incentive to upgrade and modernize.
Absolutely, yeah. It's a big deal.
Talk about a boost for businesses.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they threw in something extra for smaller businesses too, right?
They did, yeah. They increased the limits
Okay.
for expensing certain business assets. It's all about giving those smaller players
Yeah.
a fighting chance to grow and compete.
Awesome. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground on taxes, but now I'm dying to hear about this Taiwan situation.
Yeah.
It sounds like something out of a political thriller.
It is intriguing, for sure.
Yeah.
So the act actually has 2 whole sections dedicated to Taiwan.
What?
Yeah.
Wait, why is Taiwan suddenly front and center in U.S. tax law?
That's a good question.
What's the big deal?
Well, it's all about boosting global competitiveness
Okay.
and strengthening the U.S.-Taiwan relationship.
Interesting.
So, making it easier for businesses and individuals to
Yeah.
work across borders between the 2 countries.
Okay.
That's a pretty bold move.
Yeah.
Especially considering, the delicate geopolitical situation.
Okay, I'm all ears. Give me the highlights. What kind of benefits are we talking about?
All right, so for starters, qualified residents of Taiwan
Mm-hmm.
could see significant reductions in withholding taxes
Okay.
on income from the U.S. we're talking about things like interest,
Okay.
dividends, and royalties. Those payments that usually get taxed at the source.
Yeah.
So instead of that typical 30% withholding,
Right.
it could drop to 10% for interest and royalties.
Wow.
And 15% for most dividends.
That's huge. But there's got to be a catch, right? It's not just a free pass for Taiwan.
You're sharp. It all hinges on reciprocity.
Okay.
So these benefits only kick in
Okay.
once Taiwan implements similar benefits for U.S. residents earning income in Taiwan.
So it's like a you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours kind of deal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A two-way street.
I like it.
Yeah, both sides have to hold up their end of the bargain.
Okay, so it goes beyond just withholding taxes then.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Act also tries to smooth out those tricky permanent establishment rules.
Right, which is basically.
Yeah, which is basically determining when a company from one country
Yeah.
has a taxable presence in the other.
Got it.
It also simplifies the treatment of income from employment
Okay.
and even clarifies, who qualifies as a resident of Taiwan for tax purposes. It's all about reducing barriers and encouraging cross-border investment and collaboration.
Yeah, make it easier to do business.
Exactly.
And then there's that whole thing about authorizing the president to negotiate a full-fledged tax treaty with Taiwan, right?
Yep, that's in there too.
Okay.
It's like laying the groundwork for a more formal tax treaty down the line.
Interesting.
But, it's got to go through a lot of hoops and consultations in Congress first.
Sure.
It's a complex dance.
Yeah.
But the message is clear.
What's that?
The U.S. is serious about its economic relationship with Taiwan.
Wow, this Taiwan section is like something out of a spy movie.
It's pretty wide.
Who knew tax law could be so thrilling?
I know, right?
We've covered a lot of ground already.
Yeah, we have.
But there's still more to unpack.
A lot more.
We've got to talk about disaster relief,
Mm-hmm.
affordable housing,
Yeah.
and even those measures to crack down on tax fraud.
Oh, yeah. Don't forget about that.
So, speaking of relief, let's talk about how this act aims to help those affected by natural disasters.
Okay, so we've seen so many communities just devastated.
Oh, yeah.
Wildfires, hurricanes,
Right.
all sorts of disasters
Yeah.
in recent years.
It's been rough.
Yeah. And so this act tries to offer some much-needed relief for those who have been hit hard.
That's so important. So what kind of relief are we talking about here? How does it actually help people?
Okay, so for starters, it extends those helpful rules for disaster-related personal casualty losses.
Okay.
These were part of a previous disaster relief bill,
Uh-huh.
and they basically make it easier to deduct those losses on your taxes.
Okay, so even if your losses don't exceed a certain percentage of your income, you can still get some tax relief.
Exactly. After a disaster, you're dealing with so much.
Yeah.
The last thing you need is a big tax bill adding to your stress.
Absolutely.
And there's more.
Okay.
The Act has a special provision related to wildfires.
Okay, tell me about that one. I mean, wildfires have been especially devastating in recent years.
Right.
Yeah.
And this provision aims to help those affected.
Okay.
So any compensation you receive for losses or damages due to wildfires,
Okay.
think insurance payouts or FEMA assistance,
Mm-hmm.
it's excluded from your gross income. It's tax-free money
Oh, wow.
to help you get back on your feet.
Okay, so let's say your home was damaged in a wildfire and you receive a payment from your insurance company.
Yeah,
That money wouldn't be taxed.
exactly. It's meant to, give people a little breathing room financially
Yeah.
as they rebuild their lives.
That makes a lot of sense. I also remember seeing something about the East Palestine train derailment.
Uh-huh.
Is there any specific relief for that community in this act?
There is.
Okay.
So the Act treats any payments related to the East Palestine disaster,
Okay.
whether it's from the government, Norfolk Southern Railway, or their insurers,
Mm-hmm.
as qualified disaster relief payments. So just like that wildfire provision, these payments are tax-free.
Wow. So that covers things like compensation for loss, damage, expenses,
Yep.
even a decrease in property value because of the derailment.
You got it.
Wow.
Oh,
Okay, so it's a way to ensure that the financial assistance meant to help the community actually gets into the hands of those who need it most
yeah,
without being chipped away by taxes.
exactly.
That's really good to hear. Hopefully it provides some much-needed support for those impacted by that terrible event. Okay, so we've talked about tax breaks for families,
Mm,
support for businesses, relief for disaster-stricken areas,
Yep.
and even those intriguing Taiwan provisions.
uh-huh.
What else is on the agenda for this act?
Well, another major issue it tries to tackle is affordable housing.
Okay.
It's a crisis in many parts of the country.
Oh, yeah.
And this act offers a couple ways to address it.
Affordable housing is definitely a hot topic. So what approach does the act take? How does it try to make housing more affordable?
One way is by increasing the state housing credit ceiling for the low-income housing credit.
Okay, so more tax credits equals more affordable housing.
That's the hope, yeah.
Okay.
So developers can use those tax credits to offset their costs,
Okay.
which allows them to charge lower rents.
It's like giving developers a financial nudge in the right direction.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Incentivize the creation of more affordable units.
Okay, that makes sense. But tax credits are just one piece of the puzzle, right? What else does the act do to boost affordable housing?
Well, it also changes the rules for tax-exempt bond financing, which is often used to finance these projects.
Okay.
Currently, to qualify for the low-income housing credit, at least 50% of a project needs to be financed with tax-exempt bonds.
Okay.
This act lowers that threshold to 30% for projects financed with bonds issued before 2026.
Wait, so it's making it a bit easier to finance affordable housing projects.
That's the idea, yeah.
That seems like a pretty big deal.
It is. It is.
Okay.
The goal is to streamline the process and encourage more development
Right.
in the affordable housing sector. Removing some of those financial roadblocks,
Yeah.
that can make it so difficult to build affordable housing.
It sounds like they're really trying to make a dent in the affordable housing crisis with this act.
I think so, yeah.
But let's be real.
Yeah.
No policy is perfect, right? So what are some potential downsides or unintended consequences that we should be watching for?
That's a great question, and it's something we should always consider.
Yeah.
For example, with those increased tax credits for affordable housing,
Yeah.
some critics might argue that it's not enough to truly move the needle.
Yeah, they might say we need more direct investment in affordable housing.
Exactly.
Not just tax breaks for developers.
Right, right.
That's a valid point. And what about those changes to tax-exempt bond financing?
Yeah.
Could those have any unintended consequences?
Well, some experts worry that lowering that threshold for tax-exempt bonds would actually make it harder
Oh, wow.
to finance affordable housing projects in the long run. They argue that it could reduce the supply of tax-exempt bonds available
Right.
for these projects, driving up costs
Wow.
and making it more expensive to build affordable housing.
It's like a delicate balancing act.
It is.
Trying to find the right incentives without creating these unintended consequences down the line.
Exactly.
It'll be interesting to see how these affordable housing provisions play out in the real world. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground on taxes, disaster relief, affordable housing, and those intriguing Taiwan provisions.
It's a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
But there's one more piece of this act we need to discuss.
Okay.
Tax administration and the fight against fraud. What's happening on that front?
Okay, so you know how businesses have to file those 1099 forms?
The 1099 NEC?
Yeah, the 1099 NEC and 1099 MISC.
Yeah, I've definitely filled out my fair share of those forms.
Yeah.
So what's changing there?
So the reporting threshold is going up.
Okay.
Currently, businesses have to file these forms for payments of $600 or more. The Act bumps that up to $1,000 and indexes it to inflation after 2024.
Wait, so businesses won't have to file as many forms?
That's right. Yeah, it's all about reducing paperwork,
Yeah.
making life a little easier for businesses.
Less paperwork is always a good thing.
Yeah, I think most people would agree with that.
Okay. But I also remember hearing something about increased enforcement, especially when it comes to the COVID-related Employee Retention Tax Credit.
The ERTC.
Or ERTC. So what's the story there?
Yeah, the ERTC has been in the news a lot lately.
Yeah.
Concerns about fraud and abuse.
Right.
And this act takes aim at those issues head on.
So they're cracking down on those who are trying to game the system.
Yeah.
Okay, so what kind of measures are we talking about here?
So they're getting pretty serious about it.
Okay.
The act significantly increases the penalties for anyone caught aiding and abetting ERTC fraud,
Okay.
especially those who promote or advise on ERTC schemes. We're talking about penalties that could reach hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And get this, the penalty for ERTC fraud. It could cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars. That's a serious deterrent. But it doesn't stop there, right?
Nope, they're not messing around. The Act also imposes stricter due diligence requirements on ERTC promoters and advisors.
Okay.
So they need to be extra careful about vetting their clients and making sure they're actually eligible for the credit.
So they're holding those who are facilitating fraud accountable.
Yeah.
But what about the IRS? Do they even have the resources to actually investigate and prosecute these cases?
That's a good point. And to make sure the IRS has enough time to catch these fraudsters, The act extends the statute of limitations on ERTC assessments to 6 years.
So if you're thinking about trying to pull a fast one with the ERTC, think again.
Yeah.
The IRS is watching, and they've got more time to catch you.
Exactly.
But for those who are legitimately eligible for the credit, what do they need to know?
There's a deadline for claiming the ERTC. You can no longer file claims after January 31st, 2024.
Oh.
So if you think you might be eligible, you need to act fast and get that paperwork in order.
This American Taxpayer Relief Act of 2024, it's like an onion. So many layers to peel back. We've covered a ton of ground: tax credits for families, a boost for businesses, disaster relief, affordable housing, those intriguing Taiwan provisions, and even a crackdown on fraud.
It's a lot to digest.
It is a lot to digest.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, that brings us to the end of kind of part 2 of our deep dive into the nuts and bolts of the American Taxpayer Relief Act of 2024. But before we wrap things up completely, we want to leave you with some food for thought. We've covered so much in this deep dive.
I know.
From tax breaks for families to international agreements, disaster relief, affordable housing, and even a crackdown on fraud. What stands out to you as the most impactful part of this act? What's keeping you up at night?
Oh, man. That's a tough one.
Yeah.
It's like trying to pick a favorite song from an album full of hits.
Yeah.
But if I had to choose, I think I'd say those provisions related to Taiwan are particularly significant.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
They really signal a potential shift in U.S. policy.
Yeah.
You know, a deeper commitment to Taiwan's economic future and a willingness to challenge the status quo on the global stage.
It's definitely a bold move, especially given the current geopolitical climate. And it makes you wonder, what kind of precedent does this set for U.S. economic relations with other countries?
Right.
Particularly those facing similar challenges. Could we see similar tax agreements with other strategic allies?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Will this spark a new era of using tax policy as a tool to strengthen alliances?
You know, those are questions worth pondering.
Yeah.
It's a fascinating development that could have far-reaching implications.
Absolutely. And let's not forget about those changes to the child tax credit. Those have the potential to put more money directly into the pockets of millions of families.
Yeah.
Maybe even lifting some out of poverty. I mean, that's a game changer for a lot of people.
It is. But it's crucial to keep an eye on the long-term economic effects as well.
Yeah.
You know, will these changes actually stimulate growth and innovation as intended?
Right.
Or could they lead to some unintended consequences? Like increased government debt or inflation?
It's like a giant game of economic chess, so many moving pieces and potential outcomes.
Oh, yeah.
It reminds us that policy decisions, especially when it comes to taxes, are rarely simple and straightforward.
Exactly. And that's why it's so important to stay informed.
Yeah.
To dig deeper than just the headlines and engage in these kinds of discussions.
Right.
About complex issues. You know, it's about connecting the dots.
Yeah.
And understanding the ripple effects.
I couldn't agree more. We hope this deep dive has sparked some curiosity in you too, dear listener. As always, we encourage you to keep exploring, to research further, and to form your own informed opinions. This American Taxpayer Relief Act of 2024 is a beast of a bill.
It is, yeah.
With something for everyone. But the real story will unfold in the months and years to come.
Yeah, for sure.
So stay tuned.
Stay informed.
Stay informed, and let's see what the future holds. That's it for this deep dive. Until next time, keep those brains buzzing.